Okay, new data out here. And in case some of you are wondering, Ken, why are you continuing to cover this issue of unions? Well, I'm about to explain why. It could be coming to you. Recent Gallup survey found that 71% of Americans approve of organized labor. This is an uptick from 68% in 2021. And it was 64% public approval prior to COVID. So this is a sizable jump. But it's not as simple as that. So the public's like, oh, yeah, I think it's favorable. But what do actual workers think? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Justin McCarthy, who's one of the Gallup analysts on the poll, said the low unemployment rate that developed during the pandemic altered the balance of power between employers and employees. He's absolutely right. That's what we've been talking about every day. It's created an environment that is absolutely fostering the idea of union membership. And it has resulted in the formation of unions at several high-profile companies. We've been covering this fledgling union movement with Starbucks. Okay? Now, more data. 16% of Americans say they live in a household with at least one union member, and that could include themselves. 40% of Americans say their membership in unions is extremely important. Now, that's only 40%. So 60% are like our phone caller yesterday who was a member of the union, and he called. He's been a union member for 11 years, and I interviewed him on the show. I put him on the witness stand. No leading questions. The judge did not object. And he just flat out told us it's not worth it. 40% say their union membership is extremely important. And I'm going to tell you what I've continued to tell you about unions. It is nothing more than organized politics. 65%, so 40% of union members said it's extremely important, but only 1 in 10 union members rated as not important at all. 65% of union employees who were persuaded to join say it was because of better pay and benefits. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Don't forget that little piece of data. So 65% said, all right, I'll join the union if I get better pay and better benefits. It's a carrot. More on that. Nearly 60% joined a union because they said it had to do with employee rights and representation. So I'm going to get to that too. Remember that. Over 40% said it had to do with job security. 34% it was about pension and retirement. 25% said it was about improving their work environment. And 23% mentioned fairness and equality at work. Now listen to this. Only 5% of union members joined because they believed unions had a positive effect on the country. So it's all about my slice of the cheese. And this is where workers get sucked into a negative, tension-filled politics worse than a Baptist church business meeting. Because it's us versus them, and they go, well, I just want better pay and benefits. And then they end up giving their voice to some union members who run for elected office, and they become your representative, and then they immediately are all about opposition. And we heard a union worker say on this show yesterday, it never turns into anything positive. During the first 6 months of the 2022 fiscal year, the number of union representation petitions filed increased 57%. So this is a full-on movement. By the way, those sourced in a Fox Business article. Next, so the American public says they like the idea of unions. Highest numbers ever. Yeah, we think they're good. But that's just the public being polled. Well, what about workers? A majority of non-union workers in the U.S., 58% of non-union workers said they're not interested in joining a union. I got a slow clap every once in a while. It's good. While there is an increasing general support for unions among the American public, according to Ben Weigert from Gallup, he said that is more due to the fact that Americans want to put some power back in the hands of employees and improve worker experience and work environment rather than join the ranks of unions themselves. So you know what that is? This is another indictment on the crappy leadership environment in this country. And a lot of people in the middle and post-pandemic saying, you know what? I want to be valued at work. I'm telling you, folks, no one else is saying this. I'm saying this. And if you are a leader or a leader wannabe, and you watch or listen to this show, if you hear nothing else that I say, hear this. This wave of support for unions is indicative of one thing and one thing only, is that people want to love their work and be loved while they do it. And you think you're leading people just by coming in and being their supervisor. And I would ask you, are you loving your people? Because if you ain't loving them, they're going to leave you. By the way, this is true in relational. I was talking to John Deloney, my colleague. We sit 3 feet away from each other for today's show. I was all fired up about today's content. And I said that and he laughed. He goes, it's true in relationships. Hey guys, if you aren't loving your wife, she may leave you. We want to be loved. We want to be valued. And when we aren't, we begin to look. Now, some people will never leave, right? They're too scared. They're too damaged, whatever the situation is. But a lot of people are going to go, hey, listen, why do I want to stay here? I'm not valued. I'm not loved. Union membership stood at 14 million workers in 2021. That is a decline from 20% in 1983. So right now we're at about 10% of American workers are in a union. Interest in joining a union is at 20%. And that's pretty darn close to that number I gave you earlier, which said that 16% of American households have a union member in it. 27% of workers who are union members say they are engaged at work. 27%. 27% of union workers say they're actually engaged in their job. 24% of union members are actively disengaged. That means they're resentful. Yeah. The minute you step into a union, you are choosing sides in a battle. I'm just here to tell you. You don't have to agree with me on anything, quite frankly. I don't care if you agree with me or not. But I am telling you the truth. The minute you join a union, you have drawn a battle line and you said, I'm going over here to this team. And it's now us, the workers, versus you, leadership. And that is a very tenuous situation. By the way, you lose individuality because you think when you go to a union, they care more about your rights. That's a bunch of crap too. They only care about getting their agenda done. Weigert from Gallup goes on, but the bigger issue for unions, they are more contractual in nature than a holistic sentiment that members feel the union is making their work lives better overall. Favorable pay and benefits and good representation, but that's not necessarily translating into a better experience at work. And there it is. See, people join unions. You saw the data. They join unions thinking, I'm going to get better pay and better benefits. And they might. But what they don't get is a better experience at work. Why? Because we already have a leadership crisis in this nation, and I've said that leaders aren't meeting the 3 human needs at work, which are, I as a human want to experience meaning in my work, purpose. I want to be recognized for my unique contribution. Attaboy, attagirl. And then I want a relationship with my leader. I want to be coached and mentored. Well, when you get in a union, that's gone. It's all a negotiation, us versus them. So earlier in the program, I read a comment from Philip, who's watching live on YouTube, who's called the show years ago, he said. And he's currently in a union, and I want to give you all, this is going to be fun. I'm going to interview Philip, and I'm going to give you all perspective on unions because there's a growing movement. This is not a new idea. And I just want to hear from somebody who's in it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Philip joins us in Bay City, Michigan. Philip, welcome back to the Ken Coleman Show. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Ken.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Man, this is awesome. Thank you for doing this. So I want to go to school on behalf of the audience, okay? So describe your current job in the union.
I currently work as a parts maker, a production person. I build parts for one of the big three.
Got it.
And it's a steering part.
Okay, and so you're in a union of one of the big three automobile makers, and you're in parts. And you said in your
well, we're actually an independent parts supplier to
one of the big three. Got it. Okay,
yeah.
so but you still are in a union. You work for a separate company. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And you said in the chat room that you're looking to move into an apprenticeship. Where are you looking to move to do what?
Currently at the same location, just it will be an electrician at the current employer.
Okay, so how long have you been a member of a union?
11 years.
11 years. And describe the positives in your mind of being in this union.
Well, 3 years ago, they allowed me to become a ordained chaplain inside of that, and I much enjoy that piece of the job when I can. It's a volunteer position. I don't get paid for it. But,
so what are give me some of the other positives. You've been in this now over a decade. I want people to hear what it's really like to be a part of a union. Give me a few more positives. If there are, you may not have any.
There definitely there can be some solidarity in it, but
explain that because I got a lot of young people watching this, and they read stories about Starbucks deciding to unionize, and they go nuts. They love it. They're clicking on these things. It's like I'm giving them candy out there on YouTube. And I wanted to understand there can be solidarity. So what is the most positive possibility that a union would bring as it relates to solidarity? And that's a fancy word for community and unity. Give me that example of what it could be.
Well, when you can bond together and be able to get things done as a large organization, and
like what? Get what things done?
Community events and stuff like that to help back. We are currently surrounded by an area that's very poor and around the shop.
Okay, so it's a natural community. All right, so giving back, that's one thing. But I'm not hearing any real professional positives yet. Why is that, and why are you giggling?
Because it's in a very toxic environment.
What makes it toxic?
Between union and management, there's a very butt heads kind of deal, and it sometimes prevents things from going forward.
Right, because you've got union leaders who are a part of the working ranks, who are supposed to represent you and everybody else, and then you've got management, the people leading the company. And so it is a constant game of chess that gets nasty sometimes. Is this a true description?
It's very true.
And why? Well, wait a second. Wait a second, Philip. Wait a second. You're telling me that once you unionize, you got all the employees gathered together against the man, the executives, that power doesn't get you everything you want when you want it?
No, sir.
How? Why? Wait. Why? How? How does that happen? How can the leaders and executives not give you what you demand?
Because sometimes there's greed involved. There's other things that is involved that prevents people from working together instead of against each other.
Right. And how political, and I don't mean like outside Dem, Republican, conservative, liberal. I mean, how political has the union become as it relates to the real power players who are leading the union versus you, the rank and file people?
Very much so.
So it introduces, let me ask you this. Oh boy, I almost did a leading question. I don't want to do that, Philip. So I objected to myself. I object, Your Honor. Leading question before he even said it. All right, sustained. All right. So are there more inner office politics now than there were before union work? I'm just curious your view on that. More politics or less for the everyday worker?
As far as before I took a union job, or
what I mean is have you worked in a non-union environment?
Yeah.
I'm asking, are there more politics in a union environment or less?
More.
That's what I thought. That's what I've been saying. Okay. See, Philip, you're doing me a service because I've been out here. Because here's what I want people to hear. That it sounds really great and romantic, doesn't it? Until you actually live it. And it ends up being a fight, and it's not a guarantee that you're going to get what you want.
Very much.
All right. So how good is a strike? How effective? You ever been a part of a strike?
Yes.
Were you forced?
Not at all.
Were you okay? Okay, great. 2 questions. This is great. I'm in the speed round. Were you forced to strike, or was it your option?
I was essentially forced to strike.
You were forced to strike. All right. And then why was it not good?
Because negotiations didn't go further. It really did nothing. It only lasted about a day, and there was no benefit to doing it, really.
All right. There it is. Philip, what else do you have to say? I'll give you the final comment. Do you have anything else to say to these young people that are thinking that unions is the way to get the hand on poor leadership?
I think it definitely has to do with your union and the strength of your members, and in how well things can work together.
Would you say it drives up costs for the company?
Yes.
And would you say it is a better experience for the user, the end user, the customer?
Not necessarily.
Yeah. All right. There it is. Philip, I'll let you go. You're a great man. Thank you for calling in. All right. So here's the deal. That was enlightening. Here's why unions aren't what you think they are. The minute you all come together, you create an oppositional relationship with your leaders. And there's no reason for there to be opposition. If you don't like the culture, leave. But the minute unions come into play, politics amplifies because it's now us versus them, and it's jockeying back and forth. And can I ask you, young people, or any age that you think unions are good for the American worker, how many of you really like listening to Congress and reading about Congress and that insidious, dysfunctional cesspool up there? You don't like it. And that's what unions do. It's all about politics and power, not purpose.